The Federal Highway Administration gave final approval of the proposed $1.2 billion I-70 project in northeast Denver this week, ending a 14-year journey for the Colorado Department of Transportation. The approval concludes the environmental impact studies, yet more legal hurdles are likely still to come. Eric, now that the federal authority has given their final blessing after these 14 years, is it really a fait accompli?
No, it's not a fait accompli. Nothing's ever a fait accompli. I mean, Donald Trump is talking about major infrastructure projects. This is just one indication of what anyone who tries to do infrastructure in this country is up against in almost any circumstance. And a lot of the procedural hurdles and protests are very legitimate, whether it's in this case or many other cases. 14 years is a very long time. I got a kick out of reading the story this morning and seeing people say the process was rushed. Rushed and 14 years are not usually words you put together. This was the final blessing, as you indicated, Dominic, from the federal government, but there will still be plenty of activists, plenty of protests, and that will play out in court. We'll see whether the court really entertains these cases or dismisses them. And then you have the biggest hurdle of all, in my mind, which is a funding hurdle, and particularly with new priorities coming out of Washington. Although you would think with infrastructure being high on the list, you would think something like this would not only survive in those budgetary meetings, but maybe even thrive and rise to the fore. But you still have to fund the thing.
Kristen, speaking of the lawmakers, Capitol Hill, do you think we're going to see some more movement on funding or other issues related to transportation projects?
Definitely. Top priority for everybody was complaining about traffic. Of course, the disagreements how to do it. You did see, this is very unusual. I have never seen this. The Republican Senate president basically didn't shut down the idea of a tax hike, sending it to voters this fall. Basically said, we need to do a good job vetting it, but that's something we could look at, which is really dramatic change for a lot of Republicans. So I think you will see some tax sent to voters, whether it's a sales tax hike. I don't think it'll be a gas tax hike, but it could be. And I think you'll see that in combination with a bonding package, because the whole block for a big bonding package for roads the whole time has been Democrats saying, well, how are we going to pay for it? You know, the fact that we've paid off the mousetrap doesn't mean that we have, or T-Rex, sorry. The fact that we paid off T-Rex doesn't mean we have, you know, all kinds of money to do everything we want. So how are you going to pay for it? And I think Republicans are signaling they're ready to pay for it.
Patty, what does this mean, I guess, officially for the long and battled communities in Swansea and Elyria?
Well, it's not the only thing going on up there. We've got to remember that. You've got the $1 billion National Western Complex that's coming in. So I think probably what we could do is we could go set up some lunch carts, because you're talking about $2.2 billion in that corridor. Just go set up some lunch carts, overcharge the workers, and we can start paying that off that way. I think anyone who has driven over that knows something needs to be done. Whether the 14-year in the work plan is the right thing or the ditch plan is the right one, we may never know at this time, although we are certainly going to see plenty of lawsuits that are going to be fighting this. But will it save Elyria? A lot of those people have sold their houses already. I mean, what it's going to mean is they're not going to be able to reach their houses probably for the next 10 years because of the construction mess.
Wow. David, you're our esteemed lawyer at the table. We talked about these other legal hurdles. Are they significant?
At least in terms of time, you can always, they're throwing sand in the gears. You know, in 1999, Republican Governor Bill Owens and a Republican legislature sent to the voters a proposal for a bond issue for widening of I-25 that included more lanes and also a mass transit corridor in there. And the voters approved it because they thought it was a specific, good plan. That could well happen again, you know, for this and for other projects. In addition, we also see from the recent successful improvements of U.S. Highway 36 that there you could pay all the costs just by setting up a high occupancy vehicles and plus toll lane, and that takes care of all of it. Now with the ditch, maybe that wouldn't be sufficient to pay for the I-70 thing, but it would be a lot. If you watch Rachel Maddow, you've seen her sort of little info tutorials on, you know, this country used to like build really great projects like the Hoover Dam and things like that, and why don't we do that anymore? And she has a very good point. And one of the key reasons is this ridiculous thing that it takes 14 years for the environmental impact statement. Should you have an environmental impact statement and should that be studied? Yes, but it is this country is sclerotic, that it takes 14 years to do that, and there's going to be more phases after that. If we're going to improve this country, have more shovel-ready projects, all those things, this insane bureaucratic timelines have to be drastically shortened.